needs.
Hello and welcome. I'm Suma Katauka and you're watching the World Report on NewsX World. Let's take a look at the top headlines of this hour. Australia is poised to pass new laws to enable a national gun buyback and tighten background checks for gun licenses in response to the country's worst mass shooting in decades at a Jewish festival last month. Danish soldiers have arrived as part of the Arctic Endurance military exercise in Greenland's Kangerlussuaq as US President Donald Trump intensified his push to wrest sovereignty over the Arctic island from fellow NATO member Denmark. Hundreds of protesters take to the streets in Atlanta to mark Dr. Martin Luther King Day and call attention to what they see as ongoing social injustices and Trump's anti-immigrant crackdown. At the World Economic Forum in Davos, meeting was held between Oman's Economy Minister Dr. Saeed Mohammed Al Sakri and Hong Kong's Financial Secretary Paul Chan Mo Po. They have said that financial market connectivity between Hong Kong and Oman could boost mutual growth and called for stock exchanges and regulators to explore cooperation. US President Donald Trump and Syrian President Ahmad al-Sharaa held a phone call where US has shown support to Syria's territorial unity, protect Kurdish rights within the Syrian state, while both expressed a shared vision for Syria, while the Gulf Cooperation Council and Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan called the move essential. Jordan's Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister Ayman Safadi held separate phone calls with Saudi Foreign Minister Prince Faisal bin Farhan and Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan to discuss regional developments including the situation in Gaza and to strengthen coordination. The talks comes amid ongoing regional tensions. The UAE Ministry of Defense has denied Yemeni government claims that it operated secret prisons or stored weapons at Riyadh airport in Yemen, calling the allegations as misinformation, as the UAE claims that its forces completed a full and public withdrawal from Yemen on January 2nd of this year. According to Kabul police, at least 7 people were killed and more than a dozen wounded in a suicide bomb attack at a Chinese restaurant in Kabul, with police confirming the dead included 1 Chinese national and 6 Afghans, while the Afghan branch of Islamic State claimed responsibility. Now for this hour, we start with Trump's statements. US President Donald Trump has expressed indifference towards the Nobel Peace Prize, stating that saving lives mattered more to him. In a text message to Norway's Prime Minister Jonas Gahr Støre, Trump has criticized Norway for not awarding him the Nobel Peace Prize despite his role in stopping 8 wars. That's according to him. He has said that this decision freed him from solely focusing on peace, allowing him to prioritize U.S. interests. Speaking in Florida, Trump reiterated that "I don't care about the Nobel Prize" and emphasized his success is halting wars. Let's listen in.
No, I don't care about the Nobel Prize. First of all, a very fine woman felt that I deserved it and really wanted me to have the Nobel Prize, and I appreciate that. If anybody thinks that Norway doesn't control the Nobel Prize, they're just kidding. They have a board, but it's controlled by Norway, and I don't care what Norway says.
Now for this discussion, we welcome Professor Mr. Colin Chong-Yu-Keith. He's a Foreign Affairs, Security and Strategy Analyst, joins us live from Kuala Lumpur. Thank you very much, Mr. Collins, for joining us again.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Now looking at this, what are we to make of this, ever-changing stance of Trump?
Well, we've seen how, his approach has, produced results on the ground, saving lives, deterring conflicts, preventing escalations of current conflicts. And so this is extremely important. We have seen how this framing also implies that peace is also achievable through coercive stability and deterrence, and not mediation and dialogue and diplomacy alone. And this notion challenges these conventional norms of the Nobel model that there's far too often rewarding this conventional mechanism of dialogue processes, even when conflicts are still ongoing or they remain unresolved. So preventing wars, freezing conflicts, forcing dialogues and forcing negotiations can also save lives, even without these formal peace treaties, and that this is also the fundamental strength of the approach by President Trump. We have seen how the argument is that hard power, capacity, economic pressure, and of course economic tools being used, tariff has been used, and also strategic ambiguity. All these factors can also do more in terms of reducing casualties, preventing aggressions, serving as red lines to adversaries, preventing escalations, and then he has solved 8 wars, he has prevented further escalations, he has saved countless of lives, and I think it's a shame that he has not been given this recognition. And he's right to point out that this is it's no longer important for him whether to receive or not, but his fundamental aim has always been to, of course, to save lives, to prevent aggressions, and to bring peace, and that's why he is known as a peacemaker.
Right. So from your analysis, how motivated is President Trump currently about forcing negotiations for peace and saving lives? Because from his latest statements, I felt like he's not as motivated as he was back in maybe November or October. What's your analysis?
Well, certainly there will be some disappointments. We have seen how, as I've stated, it's long overdue now for him to be given recognition for what he has done for the past year in terms of preventing conflicts, in terms of solving conflicts and bringing peace. And of course also he has done more to have some fundamental progress in the current conflict in Ukraine. We have to remember that this started under the Biden administration. He has always, this has always been his priority to ensure that this does not prolong. Lives have been lost on both sides, and this has been going on for 5 years now. And it's a shame that this has happened in the first place. As not only in Ukraine, we have seen how he has also prioritized different conflicts all over the world, from Thailand, Cambodia conflict to India, Pakistan conflict, and many other more. So we have seen how I will foresee that he will continue to use this as one of the main priorities. He has stated so. And despite this absence of formal recognitions, I don't believe that this will dampen his his intent, his passion for this, and I will foresee that he will continue to double down on the need to bring a swift end to the conflict in Ukraine, to have both sides to come to this agreement, and also conflicts elsewhere. So I'll foresee that, this will continue in the near future, and this has always been his hallmark, and it is of high time now for recognitions that have been long overdue for him.
Right. And last but not least, so what do you think? What is his priority right now?
Well, his priorities will be, of course, to ensure that what he has set up to do for the past 1 year now will finally bear fruit. We have seen now, one of the core priorities will be, of course, to end the Ukraine conflict, and hopefully the peace process, the agreement, is now on the final stages. And of course, there have been consistent complexities, difficulties on the ground by both sides, but this has not dampened his spirit. We have seen how both sides have also created numerous obstacles, roadblocks along the way for the past couple of months now, but he is persistent. Of course, there have been times where he has been disappointed by the progress, by the intent, by both Zelensky and Putin. But this continues, and I don't see this to be infringing upon the ultimate aim of him to ensure that this is finally resolved, and the same case for elsewhere. And he'll continue to do so, and this will be one of his main priorities for this year, although also he'll double down on the need to ensure the security and safety of the US, as what we have seen now in the case of his approach in Venezuela and his potential approaches in Greenland. And we have to remember that a stronger and more prosperous and a more stable and secure United States will ensure that the world also will feel the same level of safety and security, because only Washington has both the hard power capacity and the intent to enforce the international law, and to ensure that red lines are met, and to ensure that any attempts by any adversaries or aggressors will be deterred through the peace through strength approach and through the might of the American military power. And this has been the case for more than 7 to 8 decades now, since the end of the Second World War, where the global order has been kept in check, has been enforced by the might of the American power to ensure that peace and stability will still reign supreme, and this will be his hallmark. I think the peace architecture of the post-Cold War liberal order will still be molded in the framework of course, to ensure peace and stability across the world, and this can only be achieved with the unraveled American military might and economic might also.
With that, I would like to thank Mr. Collins Chong-Kyu Keith for sharing that insight. Thank you very much. We have a breaking news coming in from Iran. Iran's Foreign Minister Sayed Abbas Araghchi has accused the World Economic Forum of cancelling their appearance at the upcoming Davos summit due to lies and political pressure from Israel and its US-based supporters. He has claimed that the move comes despite Iran's efforts to defend its people from what they describe as terrorist attacks and ISIS-style killings backed by Mossad. His statement also criticized the WEF for its perceived double standards, pointing out that Israel's actions in Gaza, including the mass killings of 71,000 Palestinians, did not lead to the cancellation of invitations for Israeli officials. Araghchi has slammed WEF for its inconsistent moral stance, accusing it of intellectual bankruptcy and moral depravity. Now we move on to our next news. Russia's latest attack on Ukraine has left a 50-year-old man dead in Kyiv and caused significant damage. Governor Mykola Kalashnik has reported that the strike also destroyed 2 fuel stations. Kyiv's Mayor Vitaly Klitschko has announced that over 5,600 high-rise buildings in the capital were left without heating after the strike, with 80% of these affected once again after previous January 9th attack. In the southern Odessa region, an energy infrastructure facility was damaged and a drone hit a residential building in Kornomorsk, with no details on injuries yet. Authorities are still addressing the damage. Now for this discussion, we welcome Ms. Julia Kazdobina. She's a senior fellow at Ukrainian Prism, joins us live from Poland. Thank you very much, Ms. Kazdobina, for joining us. Good to see you. Now, Thank you. Now, as you know, we are almost 4 years into this war and things are intensifying. How is the situation over there in Ukraine and Kyiv?
Well, the situation is actually pretty dire because it's very, very cold. Temperatures at night go to minus 20 degrees Celsius, which is very cold. I'm not sure how much it is in Fahrenheit, but at minus 20 is very cold, and in some places it's even less than that. It's minus 10 during the day, and Russia has been consistently hitting Ukrainian critical infrastructure, and this is actually a sustained and a deliberate strategy to put Ukrainians, to break Ukrainians' will to resist Russian aggression, because first they tried to destroy the energy system as a whole. They failed. They tried to separate left bank Ukraine from right bank Ukraine, and they also failed. And so now they've changed the strategy, and now they send many missiles and drones at the same time to overwhelm Ukrainian air defenses into one region or one city, and make sure that people have no electricity, that they have no running water, and they have no heating. And Ukraine is a very urbanized country, and in big cities the heating system and the electricity system is very centralized, and so if you hit several of those really big heat producing plants or electricity producing plants, then it's a large number of people is left without electricity. And as you mentioned, in Kyiv, this is an attack that follows a previous major attack on January 9th, which also plunged 6,000 buildings in Kyiv into darkness and cold. And authorities in Ukraine, they were working to restore heating. And yesterday it was reported that the work was mostly done and heat was coming back to people's houses. But Russia did it again today. And so all of these efforts that were spent restoring, and they were they were wasted. And so, but this is a consistent strategy. And the previous speaker that just spoke and about how much Donald Trump is doing to stop the war, actually what he's doing has an opposite effect, because just like your previous speaker, he spoke about both sides. In this case, it's not both sides. It's Russian aggression. It's a much bigger country that lied about a threat to it, and which attacked a much smaller country and continues attacking a much smaller country and a much weaker country on a daily basis. And it's not both sides. It's a clear aggressor and a clear victim. And what Donald Trump is doing, and he's doing exactly what your previous speaker was saying, trying to put the sign of equality between two sides and putting pressure on Ukraine to accept Russian demands, while at the same time trying to reward Russia. And so this only prolongs the war, because Russia feels empowered. Its aggression is not being stopped, and it continues. And from our previous experience, we know that if there is a deal with Russia, it means nothing, because we've made deals with them previously and they violated many deals previously, and they still attacked us. So I mean, what Donald Trump is doing, it's not something that's going to lead to peace. It only leads to bigger escalation.
So what do you think is Trump's priority there? And also, so recently some European countries have suggested considering talking directly with Russia instead of talking to Russia through US. What's your take on that?
From what I understand from the national security strategy of the United States, they seek what they call strategic stability. And they want to end the war, and they don't really care where the line will be drawn on the map. They just want to end the war, and they want to transfer the responsibility for European security to Europeans. But at the same time, they want to be the one who calls the shots in Europe. So they want to destroy the existing institutions, meaning European Union, meaning NATO, actually, although they claim they're not withdrawing from NATO. But looking at what's happening in Greenland these days, it's clearly not healthy thing for NATO. And so they're trying to destroy institutions that were built during the Cold War and create new institutions in which European countries, which have like-minded governments. And I think we can be sure by now that the United States is not a democratic government at this point. And so they want to create unions with other non-democratic forces in Europe, and sort of build, as Europeans now say, a vassal relationship, not a partner or allied relationship the way it was previously.
Thank you very much, Ms. Kazdabina, for sharing that insight and telling us sharing that reality of Ukraine with us. Thank you very much. Now we move the focus on to Vietnam. Vietnam's top leader, To Lam, has promised an annual economic growth exceeding 10% for the remainder of the decade, despite global challenges, during his address to the Communist Party Congress that will shape his political future. Lam has stated that the Congress is taking place in a time of many overlapping difficulties and challenges, from natural disasters, storms and floods, to epidemics, security risks, fierce strategic competition, and major disruptions in energy, food and supply chains. Lam, a former head of state security, is seeking to retain his role as party chief and possibly take one of the state presidency, and has promised for greater government reforms after he launched the bureaucracy's most significant overhaul in decades during his brief tenure as party chief. Now for this discussion, we welcome back Mr. Collins Chong-Yu Keith. He's a Foreign Affairs and Security Strategy Analyst, joins us live from Kuala Lumpur. Thank you very much, Mr. Collins, for staying with us. Thank you. Now, looking at this, can you tell us who exactly is To Lam's, and how effective is his pledge of sustained double-digit economic function as a political strategy?
Yes, we have seen how during this Congress it is expected for Tholam to consolidate his grip, and amidst these different geopolitical and economic challenges, we have seen how Vietnam's growth has been credible and effective, and of course impressive. But now it faces this stagnation, this long-term trap of being in a middle income transition, with this slowing global trade, regional challenges. Of course, also tighter tax controls, and I think he understands that incremental reforms alone are no longer sufficient now, and of course, this new wave of this transition towards new energy sources in terms of digitalization, in terms of industrial upgrading, the race for critical minerals and resources, and high-tech manufacturing. So these have been the fundamental growth factors for Vietnam. But this is the time to push growth further, to ensure that the domestic audience is the needs and demands of the domestic audience are being met. So we have seen how the growth ambitions, the economic models of Vietnam have always been on the reliance on external demands. It's an export-oriented nation, also on FDI, on foreign direct investment, on key sectors, and being as the hub for supply chain positioning and resilience. So Vietnam has been a case for the China Plus One strategy. And of course, the economic strategy of strategic hedging with different powers, of course, with China, with the US, with East Asia, with Japan and South Korea, have been a key. And this will be expected to continue in terms of hedging without outright alignment. And this is being reflected with Vietnam's own bamboo diplomacy, and with its own four no's in its foreign conduct. No formal alliances and no use of force. But this will be increasingly under strain. Now we have seen how the polemic, of course, the dilemma in South China Sea. We'll see that Vietnam is going to have a harder time in hedging between the needs to appease to its neighbor China, and of course also without expecting this and repercussions and risks in terms of economic retaliation. Also at the same time, the need also to rely on the US market in terms of also the vast market access, the inflow of technology and resources, and of course capital, and of course also its positioning within the regional framework in ASEAN. So all this will weigh heavily in how Tholam will rejuvenate the internal economic drive and changes, and especially at this time of this critical juncture of this 5-year planning for Vietnam, and the 10-year and 15-year timeline and framework in the anniversary of the party. So we have seen how this will continue to be in the main focus for Tholam.
And for Mr. Tholam, how might Tholam's background in state security and his push for major bureaucratic reform influence the internal party support for retaining his current role and maybe also expanding his authority or role?
Yes, we have seen how I think he's a strategic person, and he has been cognizant of the fact that there needs to be this fundamental push for reform internally. So we can expect some adjustments. Of course, also the push to liberalize certain sectors, but selectively, of course, to ensure that domestic needs are met, and also, of course, to continue on his drive for anti-corruption, for good governance, to ensure that there's this synergy and consolidation of in terms of efficiency in the impact of good governance, and to ensure that anti-corruption measures are in place to gain the needed trust and confidence from the people, from the public. And so this will be used as the tools of this consolidation and maybe a more centralized structure of power rather than pluralism. And we've seen how this is also critical for Vietnam to ensure that there's this equal spread of growth and the feel-good factor on the ground. And it's not only concentrated in the north or in the south, so there's this alignment of priorities and in bridging these different geographical hubs, and to ensure that there's this connectivity, and in terms of also other spillover impact from all the major economic reforms that will be in place, and to ensure that he has got the trust and confidence of the people. So I think this will be some of the key main tenets of how he will undergo these structures and reforms under his watch.
With that, I would like to thank Mr. Collins Chong Yu Keith for joining us today and sharing that insight throughout our news. Thank you very much. Now we move on to our next news. The landmark national security trial for Hong Kong's Tiananmen vigil organizers is set to begin on January 22nd. Meanwhile, Chong Hang Tang, Lee Chak-yeon and Albert Ho are facing up to 10 years in prison for inciting subversion of state power under Hong Kong's national security law. The Hong Kong Alliance, which had organized the Tiananmen vigil since 1990, was disbanded in 2021 after being charged under the law. Public commemorations have been banned since 2020. However, Cho and Lee are expected to plead not guilty, while Ho plans to plead guilty. Meanwhile, all three remain in custody as the trial proceeds. Let's listen in.
係要去反抗佢，佢梗係覺得要打壓你啦。但係咪調翻轉就又換嚟一個空間咧？我哋都唔認為唔一定嘅。係咪你放棄咗自己所有力量，唔去抗爭，佢就會放過你咧？似乎都唔係啦。你見到佢哋對所有解散嘅團體都會窮追猛打，所以我覺得我哋唯一能依靠嘅係我哋自己嘅力量，係我哋大家嘅關注，係我哋繼續去做啱嘅事，而做啱嘅事本身係有力量喺入邊嘅。咁我哋係用咁樣嘅方法去抗衡我哋而家面對嘅風險。
When the government, Carrie Lam said that the whole ban of gathering regulation will go to June 4th, then it's quite obvious what they are up to. You know, it's very clear that they have a political objective.
Now we move on to US. The US Supreme Court will hear a pivotal case this week that could impact the Federal Reserve's independence. President Donald Trump's attempt to dismiss Fed Governor Lisa Cook over alleged mortgage fraud raises questions about the president's power to remove Fed officials. Trump has argued that cause for removal should be broadly defined, which could weaken the Fed's autonomy. Cook, who was accused of misrepresenting mortgage information, believes her firing is politically motivated due to Trump's frustration with high interest rates. Let's listen into what an official has shared.
This is one of the most important cases about presidential power and the administrative agencies, perhaps more important than the other decision that the court's going to make this year about the Federal Trade Commission and the independence of those commissioners, because the Federal Reserve is the most important administrative agency in the United States. And while the president, I think, has a good constitutional argument to have direct control over things like the FTC, the FCC, you know, these are agencies which are enforcing federal law. Whether he should have direct control over the money supply, that's another question, and that's enormously important because that's such a direct, immediate impact on the economy.
Meanwhile, Trump has hinted at nominating a new Fed chair amid an ongoing criminal investigation into Jerome Powell over renovation costs at the Fed's headquarters. Let's listen into his recent comments.
Tell us about the Fed. Will you make a decision before Davos?
Yeah, I know who I want.
You know who you want?
In the Fed.
When will you make a decision?
I'll announce it sometime, but I know who I want.
That's all we have time for. Keep watching NewsX World for more news updates from around the world.